Addiction, recovery, redemption. These are survivor stories. You are listening to Shattered.
Today I have Mark Duncan and his beautiful wife Jessica. They are the owners of the Butterfly Ranch. But before we start talking about the ranch part of it, Mark, we'll start with you and we'll start about from your peer pressure age of about 14.
Okay. Yeah, around the age of 14, I'd been raised in church, living what I thought was a good life, of trying to be a good Christian boy. And but at the age of 14, one day I was in a locker room with the guys, and one of my friends that was in there heard me say a cuss word, and that was way out of my character. And I noticed it got me a lot of attention, and just that peer pressure got me starting to hang around the guys that did that. And probably within 6 months, the guy asked me if I'd ever smoked pot, said he got a joint off of his brother and wanted me to try it. And I guess from the time I was about 14 till I graduated high school, marijuana became something I did pretty much every day through school.
Right.
And, that lasted, and I went in the Air Force after I graduated high school, and I kind of left the marijuana alone because you can't do that and make it through the military because of the drug testing, but alcohol became very socially acceptable in the military, so I just transitioned over from the marijuana use to alcohol, and probably did that for about 4 years' time. And after I got out of the military, drinking had become such a strong part of my life. I ended up getting 2 DUIs back to back, probably 10 days apart in Memphis, Tennessee, both on Union Avenue, and went to jail. And I went to rehab after I got out of jail. My mother helped me obtain a lawyer that plea bargain, said if I'd go to court, I'd get out a lot of my fines and some jail time because of the 2 DUIs. And they run everything concurrent as one first-time offense instead of 2 separate. So I went to a program and did good for quite some time after I had graduated that program. And I probably, stayed clean and went to college. And it was during my years of college, I had been really trying to serve the Lord, but I'd kind of gotten off track with things at this time of my life. And there was a couple girls that lived in my apartment said if I wanted to go with them on spring break that they could offer me a place. They said I'd have my own room and it'd be very nice if I just drive them to the location for spring break down in Florida, close to Miami. Told me it'd be over a 20-hour drive, and they wanted me to be the driver, but they didn't want to get a motel. They just wanted to drive all the way straight through. I told them, I know I can't drive 20-something hours without getting a room or something. They said, oh, yeah, you can. They said, we got a way that we can get down there without having to stop. And that was the first time I was ever introduced to meth. And we made that trip very easily in 20-something hours. And in my mind, I was thinking, I'll do it just this one time, make the trip for these girls, and that'll be it. And 6 years later, I, had noticed I'd been using meth nearly daily for those 6 years at that time.
Jessica, tell me a little bit about your past.
Well, I would say probably at about the same time as Mark, around the age of 14, my father passed away shortly after my 14th birthday. I kind of rebelled a little bit. My mother was still in mourning, so I did, try marijuana, alcohol, all that. But my addiction really didn't start until I was married. I had 3 kids. I had just had my 3rd child, and she was about 3 months old, and my marriage was on the rocks. We had some pretty rough spots along the way, and I got caught up. I went with some girls to the bar after work one night, and they all kind of shuttled into that big handicap bathroom one night, and they were all going around, passing around doing cocaine. And just so that I didn't look like the stupid girl, I guess, I kind of partook. I was already at a place where emotionally I was not stable anyway. And so I partook, and I did cocaine for the first time that night, and it lasted for about 2 years. And then right towards the end of my addiction, someone offered me crystal meth instead of cocaine, and I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what it was, but I did it one time, and it was a lot cheaper, lasted a lot longer, and it's like Mark said, that one time, you don't think that one time, you can do it just one time and you're not going to be addicted, or you'll just cave to the peer pressure so that you won't look foolish. But the devil knows, and, it latches onto you one time, and that's all it took. And,
Right.
and it numbs you, if you're going through anything emotionally, or you're having problems in your life, and you can get that numbing feeling where you don't have to face your problems, then it's even easier to latch on to that, So,
Right.
and I was raised right. I knew those types of things weren't acceptable. I knew that wasn't right. Just, even a life without God, I knew just morally that wasn't right, But I had been raised in church, and I had been raised, where my father had come out of addiction from alcoholism. So I'd seen God work, and I knew that that wasn't a life that I wanted to put my children through.
Right.
But for 2 years, I did. I did. And so I ended up moving from Little Rock to a little town south of Hot Springs to really build my relationship with God and just start over, to get away from everything and everybody. And a lot of people don't have to do that, but I knew I did.
Right.
My children's father worked for the city, and so he was constantly there. And then those other people that you don't want to do drugs anymore, but it will chase you down.
Right.
And so I had to move an hour away to get away from everything and everybody, to kind of get my life back on track. So I went to college and was working in the medical field, was going to RN school, and been praying about my life and where I needed it to go. And one morning, some girls knocked on my door to use the car, or they had broke down to use my phone, back before cell phones. And so I let these girls come in and borrow my telephone to call for a ride. And you could tell they were both pretty messed up. They were both strung out on meth, just the sores, and they were just grungy. There was a look to it. And so the whole time they were on the phone, I'm praying, and by this time I'm a year and a half, sober, living for God and whatever. And anyway, as I got ready to leave, I just kept trying to talk to them. I wanted to let them know there was hope.
Right.
I just wanted to plant some hope, because for the 2 years that I was there, I really didn't see any hope, because I had tried so many times to escape it. I didn't want that. I didn't want that life,
Right.
but I couldn't escape it, and anyway, so as they got ready to leave, I hugged the one girl and I just started crying. And I just told her, I said, it doesn't have to be like this. God can pull you out of this and, and give you a life. And she was like, don't you? And I was like, yeah. So they left, their car mysteriously starts and they leave. And I just began to pray. I was like, and talk to God. I don't know why you brought those girls here, but I know it's not for any reason, God. I don't understand. And he said, someday you're going to have a place for women to come, to have their lives back and have their families restored. And so a little church that I was going to on Friday nights that had a lot of different people that were coming there that were in recovery or, had come out of a similar past. That's where I met Mark.
A little bit before that, you and your cousin, at what point?
Well, when I graduated college, I had already developed an addiction for meth at that time. During my last year of college, actually. So after I graduated, I moved back to my hometown of Swifton, Arkansas. And I didn't know anybody at my hometown that did meth. All my use had been at Russellville, Arkansas, at Arkansas Tech University. So when I moved home, of course, I start looking to where I can find that drug. And it just so happened that my cousin was on meth, and I didn't know that until I had moved back. It's a small town, less than 1,000 people, so it's easy to, make those connections. So me and my cousin became best friends very quick, and it was all centered around the drug, crystal methamphetamines, and we started doing the dope together all the time. And then one day I received a phone call. She had taken some bad dope, and it nearly killed her. She was in the hospital in Jonesboro, Arkansas, at St. Bernard's Hospital. I drove to see her, and you could hardly recognize her because so many pounds of fluid had built up on her body. It was she had injected, and something had went wrong there. And they were talking about doing a heart transplant. Didn't think she would ever get out of the hospital. But while I was there visiting, she told me that, one of our friends, I'll just say Pastor Brandon Gates out of Tuckerman, Arkansas, had came in and prayed with her, and she had accepted the Lord, and she wanted me to know that day. And I left there, and I'm still in my addiction. And I left there that day not realizing that she had ever got out of the hospital. It wasn't looking good at all. But fortunately, she was able to come home from the hospital quite some time later. And when she did, she invited me to church with her. And I was really reluctant to want to go because I'm still in my addiction, but I wanted to support what she was trying to do. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll go to church with you. And on the way to service that night, I remember her very clearly saying, I wish God could use my life to help other women not have to go through what I've been through with my addiction. And those words, got my attention that night, but they came back later. I really thought, man, she's going to try to do something to help other women. But unfortunately, within about probably 7 or 8 months after that night we went to church, she was killed in an automobile accident. She's 26 years old, died on December 26th of 2003. And after she died, she's buried at Arnold Cemetery in Swifton. My family's maintained the cemetery for over 60 years, my grandfather, then my father, and now I've been mowing it for over about 20 years. And in 2004, early March, I was mowing around her tombstone that was only been there, 3 or 4 months at the time. And her tombstone's shaped like a butterfly. She was obsessed with butterflies. She had a butterfly cell phone cover, had butterfly decal on her windshield. She just loved butterflies, so her family ordered a tombstone in that shape. And that day, still in my addiction, probably high at the moment, I was mowing around that tombstone, and something inside me thought, man, that would have been a great name for a women's program, Butterfly Ranch Women's Center. One, because of the whole metamorphosis, going from a caterpillar to a butterfly.
Transformation.
But, the transformation that takes place. And now at our program, which is named in honor of Stephanie, Butterfly Ranch Women's Center, which is an 18-bed facility that helps women overcome addiction. But when you walk in our front door, there's a metal sculpture of a butterfly. And on the wing is 2 Corinthians 5:17, it says, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. So the whole, not just the biological part of it, but the spiritual part of a true transformation that God has brought in my life. And I believe he did that for my cousin that day in the hospital as well. And that's the hope we offer to the women that come through our program, that he can recreate you. He can give you new life from this, because as my wife said earlier, there comes a point in addiction, not just meth, in narcotic medications prescribed by doctors, meth, alcoholism. There comes a point when you become so addicted, you feel hopeless. It just seems like all hope is gone, and Christ can restore that hope, and that's who I give all the credit for delivering me from a 6-year meth addiction to allowing me. I've been clean for over probably about 15 to 16 years now, It started in 2004. After I mowed around that tombstone and that thought come into my mind that day about what a great name for a women's center, her death had such an impact on me. I literally, I had a home that was paid for. I had a vehicle and a job. I mean, things were going well outside of my addiction, but I got rid of everything and moved to Pascagoula, Mississippi, where I had a good Christian friend that said he'd give me a place to get my head straight. And I stayed down there for 5 or 6 months. And it was at that time I moved back after I knew I had made up my mind. That's not the life I'm going to live. I had rededicated my life to God and determined that I was going to serve him in whatever capacity that he would allow me to serve him. So when I moved back to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and began to work at a men's teen challenge program at Hot Springs, that's the original program I went to after my stint with alcohol back in the early 90s. Unfortunately, I stayed clean for about those 5 years before I fell. But when I went back and began to work at the Men's Teen Challenge program, it was there that I began to go to a little church where I met my wife, and we got hooked up together
You have to tell the story.
in a on a ministry team, and our pastor began to send us out on street reach. Just street witnessing to people, inviting them to church
Right.
and handing out some pamphlets to let them know there's hope from addiction and, just things of this nature. And we developed a friendship. And while we were out street ministering as friends, no consideration. I wasn't looking for a wife. I was happy with where I was at the time. But I shared that story with her about my cousin, about the tombstone, about the thought, about a women's center. And when I did, she said, well, let me tell you this story about 2 girls pulling up in my driveway wanting to borrow my phone, and how God told me someday you're going to help many women. So, I'm just seeing.
You two were meant to be
Oh,
together.
man, we got
we believe
a
it.
very like-minded vision and goal, and even the convictions that God's given my wife that I share with her. But we were married within 5 months, probably, after really getting to know each other. And at that time, I felt like God told me, to move my family back to Swifton, Arkansas, where we now reside. And when I first got back to town, and we are just trying to make ends meet, because I felt like God moved us back there, but he didn't tell me where I was supposed to work or have a job. So my wife took a part-time job at a bank, ended up working there full-time as a bank teller. But one day I'm at the house and I'm feeling pretty, I guess worthless would be a good word for it, because I need to be supporting my family. And I was struggling with employment at the time. And I'm at the house and a lady comes and knocks on the door. She's not in my home probably 3 or 4 minutes, but she knocked on the door and said, have you ever considered pastoring a church? I said, no, ma'am, I haven't. Well, at this time, because of my life I'd been about 5 or 6 years clean and in the church and working in a men's ministry, I'd had opportunities to preach in the prison system at Washita River Unit. I had preached many times at a men's program, and I guess she had heard. So she said, have you ever considered pastoring a church? I said, no, I haven't. She left my house, and I couldn't shake that thought. So I began to do a little research to see what it would take to become a licensed minister.
Right.
And in the meantime, that church held a vote and voted me in as their pastor. And now here I am back in Swifton, and just got voted in as a pastor of a very small country church. And about 8 or 9 months into being the pastor, we canceled an evening service and attended a service 2 miles down the road of a like denomination. And the pastor said, would you consider maybe consolidating our 2 churches into one? And I said, well, I don't know if my congregation would go for it, but I'll talk to them. I'll cut that story really short and let you know both congregations voted 100% to join together, and it left this other piece of property with a church building, a youth building, a small gymnasium, a parsonage, empty.
Perfect spot.
Yes, perfect spot. And our denomination, which happens to be the Assemblies of God, said they would donate that property back to us free of charge if we had a program or something that we could start there. I had to get my 501c3 to become a nonprofit, but here we are, me and my wife, back in Arkansas with a like-minded vision with property handed to us, which is now Butterfly Ranch Women's Center. This is about 7 years after I was mowing around that tombstone, still in my addiction, thinking what a great name for a program. And even though my cousin, she's gone, I feel like that she really is helping women change their life today because of a comment she made in a car that just wouldn't leave me. So I do. I look at it and can honestly say I take no credit for what I'm being allowed to do today. God's just kind of opened the doors and laid it in my lap. So yes,
God's
ma'am.
helping the women through you guys.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's 18 beds. Tell me, if someone wants to contact y'all for the ranch, you have a website.
We do. It's Butterfly Ranch 1, the number 1.org.
.org. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the process to get into the ranch?
Typically, someone would call the center. The number's 870-485-2000. And usually Lindsay does all of our phone interviews, but they kind of just do a phone interview. We kind of get a history there about their medical, any kind of legal trouble or anything that they're in. And, and then we walk them through their process. And if it seems like they're a good candidate, and there's not any legal stuff that they need to wait on or need to take care of, we do kind of help them with some of that. Then we schedule them for a time to come in. They download the application off the website and the clothing list, and then they bring them, they come. Usually a family member is usually who brings them, but sometimes it's a court-appointed official. Sometimes we get them, straight from jail or what have you. They kind of come from all different walks of life. So that's kind of how you get the ball rolling.
And it's a 10-month residential program. And because of my connection with Teen Challenge, going through 14 months as a student and then working with them for about 5 years' time, we have modeled ourselves after that because they're over 60 years as a ministry and have an extremely successful success rate. So we've modeled our structure, and we use mainly Teen Challenge curriculum, and all of our staff members become nationally certified to be facilitators of that curriculum as well. But as far as the charge to be there, it's 10 months long. We provide all there's no needs that they have. We take care of their clothing, toothbrush, toothpaste, shampoo, everything's provided. There's an initial $500 induction fee that covers the entire 10 months of the program.
Wow. So when they're planning on coming, all they need to bring is what?
Well, typically, we're ladies. Most ladies want to bring their toiletries and their clothes and stuff. We give them a clothing list online to go by. They don't have to bring that much, but, we ask that they not exceed it and not bring 2 closets worth of clothing or, 5 things of makeup or whatever. But it's pretty basic, We tell them, to pack like you're, going on a long vacation.
Right.
So to speak. So their toiletries, makeup, and girl stuff, anything. We do get some people that come in. Sometimes they've made a complete break from their past, and if they've done that, kudos to them because, sometimes they need to, but they'll come in with absolutely nothing. And so if that's the situation they find themselves in, it's okay. We make sure that they get everything that they need.
Some have more and some have less.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
How has the community helped you guys?
Our community's been great. I think in the very beginning they were really skeptical. We've been there over 8 years now, so I believe they see that there's some longevity to what we're doing. Initially, like I said, we're in a town of under 1,000 people, and I was born and raised there, and they knew what I'd gotten into. They knew my
Right.
background, so I don't think they had a lot of faith in me, and rightfully so. But I think that they've seen Christ in me now rather than who I was. They've seen who I've become in Christ. So they've put a lot of support into us. We have the support of the local churches. Our structure calls for 4 hours a day of work detail. We do 4 hours of classroom in the morning, 4 hours of work detail in the afternoon. And in our work detail program, we have ladies and men and businesses that use our women to come clean their homes, clean their businesses,
Right.
detail their vehicles. We clean churches. So we do a lot of work in the community in that capacity. And hopefully in the upcoming year, and we've already been making plans for this, our staff meetings, that we're wanting to start a feeding program where we can feed the people in our community.
Like a soup kitchen.
Like a soup kitchen type deal. Something that we can do to give back to the community.
Right.
It helps us because we don't receive any type of government funding whatsoever. None of our ladies that come in our program are on food stamps. It is all
Wow.
donations from churches and individuals and our hard work, getting
Right.
out there and working on our work detail program that provides for what we do. So
And the
we're
staff.
very grateful for our community.
I was going to say the staff and Mark and myself are not afraid to get out there and work right alongside of them, you know,
Right.
and lead by example.
Absolutely. If someone watching this wants to help within your community, what can they do?
The main thing that they could do is if they do need workers that they consider using our ladies
Right.
during our work detail program, we have a safeguard in place where we don't just send our new ladies out. I mean, they come in there as addicts, so we have a level system. They have to move so far up in the program and earn trust before we begin to send them out into the community to work. But if they could use us on the work detail program, that's greatly appreciated. We have several that when they know that we're in need, because like I said, we don't receive any assistance even with our food, but we have people in our community that will drive out with a carload of milk
Right.
or meat for our, I mean, we've had
Right.
people in
That's
our
awesome.
community that go out and kill extra deer during deer season and say, can you guys use the meat? And they'll send it and get it, you know,
The processors.
the processed and everything and brought to us. We have several that donate food items to our program. And I hate to say this in the world that we live in today because it's certainly not about the money, but one of our greatest needs is financial resources because
Absolutely.
our staff needs money. We pay them a salary. You know, it costs a lot. We have 3 propane tanks, 2 500-gallon and a 250-gallon that we have to keep that provides heat for our facility, our electric, our water bill, our insurance. I mean, just our monthly budget usually falls between $15,000 and $17,000 a month just to keep our doors running. And sometimes when the money's tight and the freezers are full, that's great, but
Right.
the gas company won't let us trade in our hamburger meat for
Right.
more propane. You
You
know?
need electricity to keep the
Right.
freezer
Right.
plugged
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, finances is always one of our
in. Right.
needs.
So local businesses around there could donate money, and it would be a great tax write-off for
Oh,
them.
absolutely.
It would be a great tax write-off for them. You know, and one thing we do, July, the third week in July, it'll be July 20th of this year, we have our biggest annual fundraiser each year. It's at Nettleton Baptist Church in Jonesboro. It used to be the Northeast Arkansas County Fairground, and Nettleton Baptist bought that facility and turned it into a church. They still let us use it. This will be our 7th annual barbecue fundraiser. We do an auction and a silent auction, and we do table sponsorships. Businesses can sponsor a table, or people can donate items for our auction, and that's always a big help. But make a financial contribution to the program is greatly appreciated. And yes, it is a tax write-off for that
Right.
company as well.
When you're talking about a work detail program, is that like, because summertime's coming on, is that like mowing yards and doing some landscaping and cleaning churches or offices, businesses?
It is, and that thought was in my mind. I'm glad you mentioned the lawn mowing. We have a lawn service. We have a lady that graduated our program and moved back to Alabama when she graduated to her home. And her and her husband, after 4 years of graduating, felt God called them back, and they just came on staff with us probably 7 or 8 months ago. And his name's Scott, and he's running his wife's name's Summer, but he's running a lawn business for us now. And the ladies get out and they run weed eaters, and they work hard, and we pull weeds. And
It's
you
good
know,
for them. I'm
so
sure they enjoy it.
It is very good for them. So yes, we have a lawn service that is one of our biggest consistent sources of income on a weekly basis during
Right.
our summer months.
So you're in Swifton. What mile radius would they travel around Swifton? For work.
We normally travel, I would say, 45-minute in any direction from our hometown. That covers Jonesboro, Newport, Walnut Ridge, Hoxie, and several surrounding areas there. And if it's a little bit further and it's just like a one-time deal, somebody needs some work done, we'll even travel a further distance, but we do probably have to charge a little more for transportation, for
Sure.
gas fee or something of that nature.
Right. How long have you been clean?
Been 19 years, 19 and a half years. January was 19 years.
Very good.
Yeah. And 15 years cigarette free. That was the big one
Right.
for me. So I still smoked.
That's extremely tough.
Yeah, it was extremely tough. It was, because I tried to quit so many times, but when I finally did lay it down, felt like it was God saying, "Okay, you're not a baby anymore. It's time to grow up. Let's lay this down." But
I was a very heavy smoker, probably 3 packs a day.
wow,
And the January the 1st, 2001, me and my dad decided to make that our New Year's resolution to quit smoking, and we did.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, the end of that year, he passed away
oh wow,
of COPD and some health-related issues because he had smoked for many, many years. So the damage had already been done.
Right.
But when he passed away, I just thought, I won't pick up another cigarette.
yeah,
Never, never.
yeah,
Wow.
But it was
It's hard.
extremely tough.
it is.
Caffeine, nicotine, I mean, it's
Yeah.
all just
Yeah.
so addictive.
It is. You
Yeah.
don't realize how many things
Absolutely.
that really can get a hold of you, and you think you've got control over it, but you really don't.
And we're a non-smoking facility, and that discourages a lot of people. There's seems to be a lot of programs out there today, and a lot of women will make their decision: do they let me smoke, or will they not let me smoke?
I've seen
and
that.
we don't. And
Right.
we've had them hang up on a phone interview when we tell them
Right.
we're non-smoking. But I always tell our ladies, you're asking the wrong questions if you're asking what can I do while I'm in the program.
Right.
Because they need to be asking how successful is that program.
Right.
You can choose a program that'll let you do certain things while you're there, but how successful are they when you complete? And
Your
that's what they need to-
priorities are not quite in order.
That's
Right.
that's exactly right. And man, it's going to help their health and their
sure.
pocketbook. And I always ask them, most of the ladies that come in our program have a child, and seems like some of them's got children between the ages of 6 and 10 or 12. And I always ask them, I say, does your kid want you to quit smoking? And without fail, they'll say, my kids beg me to quit smoking.
Yeah.
Do it for somebody else besides yourself sometimes. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you all both very much for being here today. Because I'm glad y'all were in the area and could come.
Me too.
Is there anything else that either one of you guys would like to add?
I just want to say that our staff, all but one of our staff, have gone through the program. so they kind of know the ins and the outs of being on the other side. I've never been a student, so I don't know what it's like,
Right.
to be in their shoes, but they do, and they work hard, they work long, and they work for very little, and
Speaking of Lindsay.
Lindsay, and Lindsay's been here 4 years, and then we have Patrice who's been with us. Well, they've both been with us over 4 years, but a lot of girls, they're like, they don't know how we feel, they don't understand what it's like. Every single staff member, we've all been through addiction,
Right. You've walked
and
that mile.
we have, and all from different places and a different set of shoes, but we can relate, and the goal is not to just get them clean and sober, but to give them the tools that they need so once they graduate, they can go out and live a healthy
Absolutely.
and productive life, so yeah, so that's what we're all about.
You want to add anything
I
else?
honestly think we've covered it all. I mean, I could not say enough how much appreciative we are to our staff. And the one she's talking about, Lindsay, graduated our program 4 years ago. She came there with an ankle monitor, and when they cut this thing off, I'm out of here.
Right.
4 years later, she's still there, a faithful employee. But not only that, but when she graduated, our staff housing that's available for her is on property. And she's been living on property for 4 years. And when you walk out your front door, there's the students. It's like you're always at work. And I admire her for being able to do that. But if I was to put a need out there, we're in great need of a house trailer right now. We're going to move her and her family of 5. We're looking for, maybe a double wide or something. We've got some land that has been donated by my family to put a house on. If we can either get her a small house built or a house trailer, like a double wide, to put on the property, we are on a mission to bless her by getting her off property for her faithfulness to what she's done for us.
So you are in need of like a really
double-wide
good
mobile home.
used
We're
double
in a great
wide
need
mobile
of
home.
that. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
or a 3-bedroom. She has 3 children, and it's just a miracle there. God has completely restored her family.
She went. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. She got custody back of her children. Her and her husband. She actually divorced her husband as a staff member. He was still in his addiction, but it thwarted him into going and getting help. And he graduated a program. They remarried last June, a year ago. They remarried. They got custody back. I'm sorry, I'm gonna start crying. Of all their children, and God has just completely restored that family. And they're serving the Lord together. They're teaching their
great.
children, and it's just, it really is. It's amazing. And so we want to. It's tough living on property, but even more so when you have children and you just really don't have a whole lot of privacy.
Right.
So that's been a big concern for us, is trying to find something for her.
So either like a 3-bedroom home or a double wide
Yes, ma'am.
trailer or
Yes,
something
ma'am.
like that.
Yeah.
Just close to the Swifton area.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Okay. I also want to say that, because I own a business, so today I would like to donate $100.
Amen. Thank you very much. I appreciate
And,
that.
and I hope that helps. But
it helps tremendously.
a lot of businesses, I know that it is a tax write-off, and so I hope more businesses do the same.
Amen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much for
Thank
being
you for
here.
having
Thank
us.
you
We
for
sure
this
appreciate it.
opportunity. To
Yes,
come
sir.
share.
Hi, I'm Dee. I'm the host of The Shattered Podcast. Please like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell on the notifications so you won't miss an episode. I'm very passionate about helping families. If you are an expert that would like to help or would like to share your testimony, please contact me. Thank you.